Hey guys, I'm Nora and I'm so excited to continue this journey with you. So today I'm actually going to touch on probably the biggest struggle that I've had as a Christian single, and that's the idea of being content. So we should probably figure out, what does contentment even mean? So I did a bit of research. Well, I actually just typed it onto Google and I found a definition which said contentment is a state of peace or rest. And when I'm really honest with looking back on my season of singleness and even just where I am, even now, it's been a journey. It definitely has not always been a state of peace or a state of rest. I would say it's probably the opposite, where it was often more a state of struggling, a state of being, discontent or I'm not really sure what the word is, but essentially I just did not feel like I was at rest at all. I was very anxious and I felt like I was constantly battling, kind of having to get through this season. And one of the reasons why I think this is so prevalent in so many single people is because of the culture that we live in. And when we look about left, right and center, we see how relationships are glorified and how relationships are shown in today's culture. In movies themselves, like when the boy and the girl meet, it's kind of like the pinnacle of their lives. It's the beginning of their life. And I think that's a lie that a lot of us have bought into. And what I realize is that contentment doesn't start when we meet someone, and contentment isn't drawn from someone else, but contentment comes from something much deeper. One story in the Bible that has really taught me about what it means to be content is found in John 4, and that's the story about the woman at the well. So there's this Samaritan woman who has actually been outcasted by society, and the reason why she's outcasted is, number one, because she's a Samaritan, so the Jews have rejected her, but also number two, because she lives an immoral life. She's had 5 husbands and now she's living with a 6th man who isn't married to her, and obviously that's a big no-no in that society back in that day. And when we look at that, her own people have rejected her, and because she's been rejected, we see and we uncover that there's a deep longing underneath for to be loved and to be cared for. And it can be so easy to judge her, but when we realize that, we see that the deeper need and the deeper thing that she's trying to do is fill that void in her life. And she's trying to fill that void by replacing it with man after man, relationship after relationship, yet she can never find that full satisfaction or that full contentment. And it's not until she encounters Jesus that he gives her another solution. In John 4:13-14, Jesus says to the woman, "Anyone who drinks this water soon will become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life." And when we think about the context of this passage, remember that this woman has come to a well to quench her physical thirst. But what Jesus highlights is that she doesn't just have a physical thirst, but rather she has a deeper spiritual thirst for something more, to fulfill that void, and something that cannot be fulfilled by just a physical attribute or a physical relationship or even like a physical person. And what that reminds us is that Jesus not only knows our needs, but Jesus is the one to be the one to fulfill our needs, because as it says here, that he is the living water who will give eternal life. When we look at this story of the Samaritan woman, we can see a woman who goes from being not content at the start to one who realizes that all she needs to be content is Jesus himself. And that's the beauty of it, is that Jesus was there all along in front of her eyes, yet she just had to open her eyes to see that and to believe that. So that's the truth that I've been holding on to in this season of my own singleness journey. Yesterday I actually wrote down in my journal about what I had learned about singleness and what I have learned about specifically about being content in this season as well. I wrote, "Contentment doesn't mean that I've lost a desire to meet my future husband, but rather it's that I'm rested in being in this season of singleness. I'm not in a rush to move on, and I know and I trust that this is where I'm meant to be." And I think often I used to actually feel really guilty in the past for still having that desire to want to find a life partner and to be with someone, because I thought that if I was truly content in God, it would mean that I wouldn't have such a yearning desire anymore. But what we know is that that's actually not true. God has designed us for connection. God even made Eve for Adam so that he would have a human connection and would have that companionship in his life. So we know that that is a beautiful thing that God has given us, and if that desire is what you have, then hold on to that desire. But at the same time, we need to remember that while we have those desires, we also simultaneously need to come to a place of being at rest and to be still in God's will and knowing and trusting that what his plans for us are good. So my prayer for you is that if you're single and you're watching this video, that you'll learn to lean onto God, that you will be able to find your contentment in Jesus, but at the same time to embrace those desires that you have for a future spouse as well, to bring those to Him and to share those with Him, and knowing that in this season, as you continue in your season of singleness, not knowing what the future holds, that you can be reassured that whatever you need is found completely in Him, and that He will bring those things to come to pass according to His will in His timing. This season of singleness that I have gone through, I know that this is not unique to myself, but I know that many of you guys are also navigating through this season right now. And I'd love for you to comment down below and share your experiences, share the things that you've struggled with and the things that you've learned about how to be content in this season as well. And don't forget to subscribe to Salt's YouTube channel for more videos on singleness, dating and relationships.